Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. It's the midweek edition of The Conversation here on Lagos Television. I am Abimbola Bello.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ajibola Jashola. Light is back, the strike is over, and joy is back as well. Good morning.
Did Joy go with the strike?
I don't know. Joy was on strike.
Joy down.
Joy was shot alongside the National Grid.
Good morning, I am Adebimpe Omotayo.
I'm glad to be back. I am Joy Olu. Welcome to The Conversation.
You are Joy Olu National Grid.
Is that our new surname?
Because we've not seen her since the National Grid went down.
So she resurrected with the National Grid. Okay. Well, just like Ajibola said, so Labour again had to clarify last night that the strike hasn't been called off. It has only been relaxed for a week.
Yes. Hasn't been suspended?
Yes, it has only been relaxed for a week to allow for negotiations with the federal government. And as we were made to understand yesterday, they will be meeting every day for the next 1 week, deliberating on the T's and the I's, how to cross and dot, and of course find the above 60,000 that government has promised to pay.
That above 60,000.
Yes, because the above 60,000, we still do not know what above 60,000 government wants to pay, even though the finance minister yesterday did give an insinuation that government will start paying 75,000 naira going forward. So we do not know if that will be the new minimum wage or if the tripartite committee will still be allowed to come up with a resolution.
I want to commend the Labour leaders for at least shifting ground and, of course, allowing for more negotiation and, of course, giving the federal government a week to do the needful. Whether they are going to accept the 75,000, because I read on a particular newspaper page this morning that Labour would not accept anything short of 100,000.
You know, they had said they would maintain three figures.
So we hope that this time around, the federal government will do the needful and involve the governors.
Very important.
As I said yesterday, the governors have been very, very quiet, and you know, some of the tripartite meetings, I don't think any of them has attended.
Their chairman is a member of the tripartite committee. That is the chairman of the governors forum. And so I'm sure he or a representative of the governors would be at that meeting for the next 1 week. So they should also make their position known. If they are not willing to pay, or if they're not capable of paying whatever it is that they agree on, what will they be paying? Then it will now be left for Labour at the state level to now fight that war.
Then aside the new national minimum wage, the electricity tariff is still there, and they are dodging that.
Labour is quiet about that now.
Well,
okay.
Because again, as of yesterday, it wasn't part of what they negotiated on. So right now, I don't know if it means that band A to E has come to stay with the new tariff.
Subsequently, I think Labour should also look beyond the usual minimum wage, year in, year out. The inflation rate in the country is quite high.
Remember
at the end of the day,
the comrade said it yesterday that, you know, the law of the country actually states that it be reviewed every 5 years.
Okay.
But because of what was going on, present day realities, perhaps there would be a need to tinker with that law and look at, is it that whenever inflation rate dictates, then there would be a need to sit and look at the wage again, or would it just be expressly put that, okay, every year, let's have a review, we may maintain. If we cannot increase, and if the realities on ground demand that we increase or add something, then that just might happen. I remember he saying that yesterday, that though it is a 5-year term that is stipulated, but there might just be the need to look at it every year.
But do we actually believe that the country is broke? I saw a particular news item this morning, Abimbola, 986 billion naira spent by 3 governors on entertainment.
I saw it.
You saw it?
I saw
It's
it.
a sector.
I saw it this morning.
Oh, entertainment sector.
Yes.
Oh, so it's broad.
Yes.
Okay.
Entertainment.
Yes, it's a sector, in governance.
Not entertainment sector, Abimbola.
Entertainment
To
sector.
entertain.
Not like the
entertain who?
entertainment ministry.
Maybe when we see the breakdown,
Under
we'll know.
tourism.
To entertain visitors,
guests. Like when I come to visit you
Thanksgiving
in
service.
3 months, you would have spent over 900 and something million.
Souvenirs.
I think the way out of this problem is for everybody to be on national minimum wage. Governors, presidents,
Yes.
members of National Assembly. Let us be on the same page. Should we go to the same market?
Okay. I'm sure that is another conversation entirely. Let's take a news point for today. Right, so this morning, if you are very conversant on the X platform, then this name isn't new. Aisha Yusufu.
Controversial.
Aisha Yusufu is always there, and you know, anytime you hear her name, you will know that there's trouble brewing. Just last week, she was in the news for ignoring the new national anthem. She sat all through while the anthem was being sung, and she said, "That is not my own national anthem." Today, she's trending, and on the news point this morning, she said, "Nothing achieved. Aisha Yusufu knocks Labour for suspending strike." And the story goes thus: Aisha Yusufu, an activist, has chided the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress for suspending the indefinite nationwide strike. She said that the organized labour commenced an indefinite strike on Monday over the federal government's refusal to accept its proposed new minimum wage. But Aisha Yusufu, in her reaction, said that she questions the essence of the strike, saying nothing was achieved. She said organized labor and the federal government were yet to reach a proper agreement on the minimum wage saga. And, you know, going on, but that's just the thrust of the story. But my take here is, would you say that the 2 days, you know, that Nigerians were made to sit at home and then the country losing over, you know, that huge amount of money, for me, is not a waste. And as of now, Labour is saying we have not called off the strike. We have only suspended for negotiations, because a lot of people have also said you haven't given government enough time. And so now they've said, okay, let's add another week for more negotiations. So for me, I think that's some achievement, rather than saying that nothing was achieved. What do you think?
Didn't you hear the figures? 130
billion
naira
Aisha,
was lost in
to her,
1 day.
Aisha loves the camera. She loves attention. Because you saying that they have not achieved anything, okay, what does she expect them to do?
Everybody
to shut down the entire country
and then
so that people can suffer?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, sometimes these things, it's a flip. Sometimes you look at the like we did yesterday, the pros and the cons. Sometimes the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, and so you like. I mean, there are students writing WAEC. There are so many other things going on. Would you not say that because of that you would disrupt
lifting those going for Hajj?
So many things going on, you know, side by side. So for me, I think Labour sent a signal to government. Government got the message this time round, and for me, it is a win-win situation. It is. Ajibola, your story?
Okay, my story this morning is related to what Abimbola just read. And Mr. President yesterday did instruct the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, to come up with new minimum wage within 48 hours. President Bola Tinubu has ordered the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, to come up with new minimum wage within 2 days to be presented before Labour. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, disclosed this at the end of the meeting with the President, which the President held with representative of the government in the tripartite committee negotiating new minimum wage with Labour. Idris said the President had just summoned a meeting of all those who negotiated on behalf of the federal government, led by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Budget, Minister of Labour, and the NNPCL GMD. What is on there? We were all there to look at all issues, and the President has directed the Minister of Finance to do the numbers and get back to him between today and tomorrow so that we can have figures ready for negotiation with Labour, is said. So we can see the speed at which the federal government is trying to resolve this matter And we hope that within 48 hours, the Honorable Minister of Finance will be able to come out with the figures so that...
maybe that's where the 75,000 came out from.
has he calculated anything yet?
I don't know.
All eyes on him.
Or is already projecting?
It's projecting. It's a projection. So maybe it's just a subtle way of saying that that's what the federal government can afford to pay.
Then, you know what, Abimbola and Adebimpe and Joy, the seriousness which the federal government is attaching to this new minimum wage now, where was it before now?
And sometimes you just hold people by the jugular.
The government should be responsible.
And
ASU, you will fail to keep your promise.
Nothing achieved.
Doctors, you fail to keep your promise.
So again, sometimes
It's becoming habitual.
just like you know, I think I said this off air. Sometimes you need to compromise and reach an agreement. So can you also, you know, if you've made a promise, can you look at the time frame by which you've made that promise? If you think that in 3 months you cannot achieve it, then renegotiate.
Exactly.
And buy more time. Well, everybody understands the facts that, yes, things are not as rosy as they used to be. But can you also, it's a win-win situation. Can you also show from your own part that you're also sacrificing something?
Abimbola, I know government. Time it was in this station where we wanted new minimum wage. We signed the agreement. We were promised more than 3 times by the then head of service. They failed to keep the agreement until we locked the gate. And that was when they paid.
So again,
So
sometimes
once we always get to this stage,
that's the language.
That's the language.
That's the
you understand.
language.
So, you speak
All
it
right,
to them.
Adebimpe, your story.
Okay, I'm celebrating. Tinubu names Abuja Highway after Wole Soyinka, the highly revered Wole Soyinka. President Bola Tinubu has named the arterial road N20 from Northern Parkway to Outer Northern Expressway in Abuja after playwright and Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. The special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Ononuga, said the highway will now be called Wole Soyinka Highway. Tinubu in naming the road after Soyinka, who will be 90 on July 13, highlighted his contributions to literature and his role in elevating Nigeria's global cultural standing. And he also fought for democracy in Nigeria.
Let's honor people when they are alive.
Yeah.
That's just
Their
it for me.
flowers,
Let's
yes.
honor people when they're alive. I mean, he'll be 90, and what a better way to celebrate
Celebrate
him.
him.
And I think this is the second monument he'll be getting. The train station in Abeokuta is also the Wole Soyinka train
it was
station.
named
So if
after
there's
him.
another highway in the federal capital named after him, but particularly is the fact that, you know, he's alive and he's witnessing, you know, Nigeria, you know, celebrating his literary icon statue. Rather than when he's dead, we'll now start saying in honor of or in remembrance of. So now that he's alive, let us celebrate him.
And despite all the political troubles in Rivers State, Wike is focused and is working. Adebimpe says something. Well, the man is trying.
Please, leave Wike.
Wike is working. He's busy.
Wike is working. Wow.
And the way Amala, his suit these days.
He's busy. Please leave Wike alone. Okay, Joy.
Lagos State government seeks more voluntary blood donors. The Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, has urged most citizens to embrace voluntary blood donation to shore up the state's blood bank. He said this at the 20th anniversary of the Lagos State Blood Transfusion Committee. He said the state only had 130,000 donors, which was not enough. This is quoting him. There is something important I want to call our attention to. The voluntary donor rate is still on the low side, which means certain patients will be without access to blood. And is appealing to Lagosians, Nigerians, to donate blood. Blood is therapeutic, and we cannot afford to be short of blood in our hospitals. So
We would have discussed this on Monday,
Yeah.
but
Let's try.
the strike.
We will definitely find time to reschedule because it is one topic that, again, over time we need to talk about, you know, the blood donation drive, because a lot of people are still not in the bracket of voluntarily donating blood. And people will say, now that I'm hungry, is it blood I want to go and donate?
And you start to gain a lot when you donate blood.
Because people don't understand. So sometimes you just need to, again, give out some of what you have, because you need to also replenish and allow the cells grow again. But not many people really understand what it is to give blood.
Nigerians, they will say, hey, you want to take my blood again?
You want to go and use it
What
for
will you-
something.
All these things you are going through.
We know what you are going to say. You want to take my blood.
I mean, at least that's why you would donate in a facility and not, you know, just anywhere else. We hope we can bring back Dr. Shikomaya, you know, to again talk about why, you know, the voluntary blood donation drive is very important. All right, those are our news points for today. Let's quickly head to X and take a look at what's trending today. Of course, big on the X platform this morning. So many issues trending. But this morning, we're staying with the national grid. Okay, so Ajwala, what time was power restored?
National Grid. They call it NEPA.
Last night around past 8 or so.
Around past 8.
Yes,
It was restored at 12:55 a.m. at mine.
Mine was 8:55.
Mine was
just
past
before
9.
9 p.m.
Past 9.
9, yeah.
But when they switched it off, it went at 2
At the same time.
2 a.m.
Unified.
Unified switch off.
You-
But it
you
was
know-
not unified switch on.
because the grid will be coming back gradually.
How?
Yes, you know, it
But
will
you do
boot-
not go off gradually.
No, it will go once.
So how can you not go on once? Come up once.
You should come up once now.
You saw the members of the Senate yesterday also complaining that they didn't like what Labour did for shutting down the national grid. And our column this morning equally mentioned something like
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk about that much later on. And you know, in the midst of the fact that power was restored, we understood yesterday that they were saying that bandit people might not have lights.
Band-
Discrimination like Barrister, what's his name again?
Exactly, Bolu.
What is
said
the
yesterday.
What is the
Band
reason?
E.
Because they are on band E.
He
or
said
band
band E may not have power for the next 4 days.
Ah.
Eh. And that's according to Nui President Adebi Adeyeye.
The Labour leaders, are they from band E?
We thank God the grid is back.
Thank God the grid is back, but again we can do better when we take collective bargaining. When you put all of us in darkness together, put us under the light together. So why would you discriminate?
Regardless of the band.
Yes, now everybody should come back at the same time. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we return, it'll be time to take a look at a column for today. A warm welcome back onto the program. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Ajibola, the column.
Okay, the column this morning is still on the electricity sector and it's coming from The Punch, written by Lekon Shotze. And he likened what Labour leaders did on Monday, shutting down the national grid. He compared it to what happened during the days of General Sani Abacha, where members of the Nupeng rather, shut down the petroleum refineries in the country to get the attention of government. And it just went on and on, saying that the planned or the increase in tariff by the Minister of Power is not the right thing to do at this time. Rather, we should expand the national grid to accommodate more power so that the GENCOs, the DISCOs, and NEPA will have a facility to distribute power to Nigerians.
Absolutely, and he did say that it felt like this was a more potent way of getting government
attention.
Government attention rather than shutting down refineries. So you can pick up a copy of the Punch newspaper or go online to take a further read on Lekon Shote's column on still on the electricity sector today. Of course, that will be what we'll be taking a look
NLC
at.
Shote
NLC.
against the government.
Okay, NLC Shote. Okay, all right, that's the much we'll take on this segment. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, part one of our conversation, it will be on the program today. And of course, done and dusted with issues around the strike. Let's move on to other germane issues in Nigeria. And today on the conversation, we'll be taking a look at the students' loan scheme. So what are those things that we need to really understand about the students' loan scheme? That will be after the break.
You're still watching The Conversation on Lagos Television. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, while aspiring to become the president of Nigeria, did make some promise when he was campaigning. And one of those promises is the introduction of a student loan scheme. And that, of course, had seen the light of the day. Today on the program, we'll be breaking down the nitty-gritty of the student loan scheme, which came into fruition on the 24th of May or so, where about 1.2 million students of the federal institutions in Nigeria would have access to be able to get this loan, of course, get their education, get some upkeeps from the federal government. So this morning, our Abuja Bureau Chief, Adegboyega Arogbodo, engaged Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, who is the MD CEO of Nigerian Education Loan Fund, to actually give us the breakdown of what the student loan is all about. So we'll be taking you to Abuja at this moment, where our Abuja Bureau Chief, Adegboyega Arogbodo, engaged Mr. Akintunde Sawyer.
From the nation's federal capital, Abuja, my name is Adegboyega Arogbodo, and we have the pleasure of welcoming to our midst the Managing Director and CEO of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, sir, let's look at NEL Fund. You know, it is one body that the whole Nigerians are looking up to now. I mean, like we've heard in so many quarters that this is a game changer in the educational sector. What is the basic vision and mission of this very board, of this very agency?
Thank you very much. The basic mission and vision for this agency is to bridge the gap for Nigerians who are aspiring to go and get higher education at a tertiary institution, but are struggling to find the money, the funds to be able to do that. But they have the right qualifications for entry, they are eligible, they have the desire, but they are shortchanged by the fact that they come from homes where perhaps they don't have enough money to send them to that institution. NEL Fund is here to bridge that gap for them. The outcome is that their lives should be improved. They should be more employable. And from there on in, they can go ahead and have a better life than is currently available to them in terms of opportunity.
I think this is very important and is new in the Nigerian system. What are the criteria to, getting this loan? Because I must tell you, that is what will be on the lips of every Nigerian student. How do we get it?
Okay, so the first thing is they need to be aware that this loan is available. If you don't know this is available, you can't apply for it. This part of what we're doing here today is to make sure that everybody, or as many people as possible, are aware. Once you have awareness of the existence of this opportunity, then it's what do you want to do? What they need to do after that is go to the portal, www.nelf.gov.ng. Once you get to that portal, it's very clear what needs to happen. There's a first of all, you have to establish that you are a Nigerian and that you have a NIN. You have to establish that you have some sort of acceptance to an institution of higher learning, a tertiary institution of higher learning in an institution that is owned by government. Third, you have to have a JAMB number. So that JAMB number is really your access to the institution. You have to have a BVN, a bank verification number, to show that you are a part of the financial system and you'll be able to pay back and you'll be able to receive salaries into a bank account. And then, of course, finally, your ability to be able to apply for the loan, either because you're already in an institution or you've been accepted into one. All of those things marry up. NIN, BVN, JAMB, admission number, matric number, and the desire to actually want to get that education. Once you have all those things, really, in truth, the desire makes you apply, you can get the loan.
Time frame of, me getting the assurance that the loan is ready for me.
Okay. So let me just say one other thing very quickly from before, and that it is that we also look at your ability to be able to pay yourself. If you can't pay the institution yourself, we're more there for you than those who can. But to answer your question, if you apply for the loan today, we are endeavoring, in line with our guidelines, to be able to give you a response within 30 days. That response, we hope, for most people, will be yes, you are eligible for the loan, and therefore will give you the approval for the loan. In some cases, people are not eligible. You can't give everybody the loan because some people don't need it. Some people don't have the right credentials. They don't have the right eligibility. Or sometimes we will say, look, we have some questions we want to ask. Are you really a Nigerian? Are you really studying? Is this, are you really a priority for the nation in terms of where you are in your academic or employer career? We really need to understand that. But within 30 days, to answer your question, we will try to give you the response. When you get the value isn't until you start at the institution. So if you apply for the loan today and we give you approval in 30 days, if your institution doesn't open or commence for entry till September, that's when you get the value, not 30 days after you've applied.
Okay. So, you know, one area that most Nigerians will be so cautious about is when it comes to the, the Nigerian factor, that this loan, is it going to be sustainable? Is it just for now, that maybe after some time, and what is the level of openness, when it comes to the disbursements of the loan? Is it just for everybody that applies, that are eligible, or just for, some sector of the society?
Thank you. That's an important question. One of the things that we've done with this loan is we've created a system that is free of human interaction. So when you apply for the loan, from the time you apply for the loan to the time you get it, you should have no meeting with anybody from the institution that's granting the loan, NELFund. We don't want any human interaction. What we want is to be able to make a determination using the system that's already pre-designed as to whether or not you are eligible for the loan. So when you say Nigerian factor, I don't know quite what you mean, but I know that everywhere in the world, there's a Singaporean factor, for example. There's a Chinese factor. There's an American factor. There's a Canadian factor. The truth about it is wherever you have issues in the world, people will try to circumvent that system. We have decided that for this system, we don't want any factor. The only factor we want is the factor of fairness and equity, so that those who apply, who will rightly need it, can get it.
So how has NELFund, been able to address the issue of repayment? Repayment of because it's a loan, it has to be repaid back. What is this? What is the strategy? What is the modes of repayment back?
I can give you the strategy. The strategy is very simple. It's based on what the law says. The law says that anybody who takes this loan is not obliged to start paying back until 2 years after youth service. That doesn't mean they can't pay back before then. If they have the money and they want to pay back early, why not? We will accept the money because we have other people who will be waiting in the queue to receive the loan. However, in order to make it easier for people who have applied for the loan, we give them time, 2 years after youth service, to actually have to report back to say, I'm ready to pay the loan. In some cases, by the way, after 2 years after youth corps, people are not ready to pay the loan. They may not have a job. They may not have a way of making money. We are not going to go after them. We're not going to force people to pay for a loan when they don't have a job. They have to be in a paid or paying job. And then to take it a step further, the employer, the person who employs the person with the loan, is obliged to check with NELFund to see whether that person has a loan with us or not. If they have a loan, then the employer, in agreement, of course, with the employee, will take a certain amount of money, 10% of their salary, and pay to NELFund on behalf of the loanee. So the funds will go direct from the employer to NELFund on behalf of the loanee, the individual who has now become the employee. That's how we've designed it to work. However, in some cases, people leave school or their educational career and they go and start their own business. Again, 2 years after youth corps, they are obliged to report to us that they have started their own business. And as soon as they become profitable, as soon as they are able to pay themselves a salary from that business, they are obliged to make remittances to NELFund. Failure to do that is a criminal offense.
Let's look at the relationship between NELFund and the institutions, that's the tertiary institutions as it were. Now, what's the level of collaboration to ensure that this fund really meets the needs of the students?
Okay, so one of the things that we've been able to do is work very well with the institutions. The way the platform, the application is set up is that without institutional verification, that student A is in this institution, even if they have every other credential fully ready, they can't get the loan. Couple of things going on here. First of all, we get authentication from the institution that that individual is studying or is about to commence a course of study at the institution. Secondly, the institution itself will receive funds directly from NELFund. So they know that there's money coming on behalf of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1,000 students. So it's in the best interest of the institution to get these funds on behalf of the students who apply, who are coming to their place of study. So there's a high level of collaboration because everybody wins. NELFund wins because we're looking to give these loans. The student wins because their education is assured and guaranteed as long as we're the ones providing the loans and making the payments directly to the institution. The institution wins because they've got guaranteed funding coming through to them.
So, let's look at the sustainability again. Like, what is the level of your collaboration? Is it just from the government that the loan is coming from, or there are areas of linking up with the private sector and public sector? What's the strategy for this sustainability of this loan?
So the sustainability of the fund, the government has pledged by law to provide into the fund 1% of all federation taxes. So the taxes that are being collected by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, 1% of those funds come to the fund, to the Nigerian Education Loan Fund. The law, however, allows the NELFund to source for funds from other places, from other areas. So when you talk about sustainability and private sector, one of the things that you will find us doing is talking to the private sector, because we suspect that in time, more and more people will require this loan, and there'll be more and more funds needed. So rather than rely entirely on the Inland Revenue Service funds, we are going to be engaging with the private sector. And I'll tell you something, the private sector has a lot to gain, because if we increase the educational standards and the skills standards of Nigerians, the private sector will be able to employ more locals rather than reaching out for expatriates or employing people who are not fully qualified or fully certified. They will have a pool of labor to take from that is better qualified than perhaps it was some years before.
They've been saying that, even the federal government have been saying right from the inception of this very fund, that it's a way of changing the game and making sure that there is this bridging of gap in the inequalities observed in the education sector. Are there other social impacts that NELFund will try to bring to the table when it comes to this loan and its disbursements?
His Excellency the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, in his wisdom and in his vision, has signed this act into law. It was signed on the 3rd of April 2024 after a number of amendments, again instituted by him. His vision is to make sure that all Nigerians who have the capacity, who have the eligibility, who have the desire, are captured in the economy in a way that adds value to themselves and to the economy of Nigeria. The vision is to change the game as far as capacity in Nigeria is concerned. Now, if you look at countries like Korea, look at countries like Singapore, look at countries like Canada, look at countries like Finland, they've applied various approaches to modernizing their education systems. Bringing in things like professionalism into teaching, bringing things like innovation, bringing things like skills, focus on skills, inclusive learning, diversity. These countries have made huge progress and in leveraging the capacity of their nations, increasing it so that actually they become leading players. I believe that this is what the president is trying to achieve. And what NELFund is one of the tools of achieving this. We're part of a toolkit that helps take things further. The main objective, the main vision is to improve the socioeconomic status of the individuals and of the nation.
And I know that in the next 1-2 years, even the phone will still be at the teething stage. Now, if there are queries when trying to, log in for the application and all that by the students, how do they get through? What are the channels to get through their complaints?
Thank you. It's an important question because invariably there will be complaints, there will be challenges. There's no IT program in the world. There's no IT application in the world where there aren't one or two issues. Sometimes it comes from the human side, people not engaging with the system properly, either because they don't understand it, or sometimes it might be a technical issue on the other side. Connectivity, downtime, all these things happen with IT projects. We're not going to be any different. But you're right. What is the outlet? How do people know what to do? We have a ticketing system. So effectively, if you go to the website, the portal website, you can see few frequently asked questions. So you will see a part of the website that says these are the questions that people ask frequently and their challenges. These are the solutions. These are the answers. We have a ticketing system. I have a complaint. I have a challenge. You click on that and you are able to post your question and get a response. We're getting lots and lots of people posting questions, posting issues that they might have. And we like it because it's important for us to solve those problems so that those coming behind don't have those problems. And sometimes those problems help us improve our systems. We're not arrogant. We're not saying that we've designed a perfect system. But the system is good enough to start, and we're ready to learn and improve as we go along.
So finally, sir, what are your words of advice to parents, to students who wants to, leverage on this opportunity, who wants to, apply for this loan?
My advice to them is that, this loan, at least we're starting it as interest-free loan. So there's no interest being charged currently, even though we have the ability and we have the powers to do that. My advice to students or applicants and to parents is that it is important to take advantage of this opportunity that the president has brought into play. It is, education, I need not say, is the one thing that once you acquire it, nobody can take it away from you. If you buy a car, it can be repossessed, it can get old. If you buy a pair of shoes, if you are still a growing person, your feet can get too big for the shoes or the shoes can get damaged. Education remains with you all the days of your life and is valued by others who might need that education to solve problems or enhance situations for them. It makes people ultimately much more employable. People talk about high unemployment in this country, but part of the problem is not so much that there aren't jobs. Part of the problem is that many, many people are not employable for those jobs. So you see companies going out to bring people from India and all kinds of places for jobs that Nigerians, if they had the right training, could do. So, this is a great opportunity for people to improve their own livelihoods and for collectively all of us to improve, if I can use the expression, the livelihood of Nigeria as a nation.
Thank you very much for your input so far, sir. We really appreciate, your time.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, and thanks for the interview.
Mr. Akintunde Sawyer is the Managing Director, Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFund, and he has been our guest this morning on The Conversation. The conversation continues from the Lagos studios. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name, from the nation's federal capital, Abuja.
right, to give another perspective to the student loan scheme is an education strategist who will be joining us on the telephone this morning. Of course, we heard from Mr. Akitunde Sawyer on the part of NEL Fund. But of course, from another angle, let's take a look at what the scheme really holds for Nigerian students, especially those from indigent background. We have joining us now Dr. Gboyega Ilusanya. He's an education strategist. Dr. Ilusanya, good morning. Thank you for joining us via the telephone today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Dr. Ilusanya, quickly tell us, I mean, we've heard from Mr. Sawyer there from the nation's capital about NEL Fund. For you who in the education sector, how key is this fund coming at this time?
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, for me, I think it is really a very big win for the education system of Nigeria, especially the tertiary level at this particular time. Because we are talking about access to tertiary education. And basically, and to be honest, because of the increasing poverty and the reduced disposable income of families, a lot of things are happening within the tertiary education space in which parents are having great difficulty in sustaining their children in tertiary education, even in the federal and the state institutions that are somehow subsidized. So for me, it is coming at a very good time, especially that it is addressing the demand side. The demand side, and I repeat that, the demand side finance of access, because there is also the supply side issue of access.
Okay.
So for the demand side, which is coming from the beneficiaries, the children, undergraduates who are demanding higher education, so this is unblocking access for them to tertiary education. So, and for me, I think the loan has been responsive, because when you look at the initial act signed, which was withdrawn, there are a lot of hindrances. And for them to have come up with this revision, which removes a number of those hindrances, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
In terms of sorting out the demand side finance, which removes the hindrances and reducing the number of dropouts, because a lot of people are quietly dropping out of tertiary education system, those who enroll, and there are some who couldn't even enroll. They get admission offers, but they couldn't pay because their parents couldn't afford. And so this is like a pathway that allows people to take responsibility, young people to take responsibility for their future.
Okay.
If my father or my mother can't pay for my tertiary education, this loan provides me an opportunity to take responsibility and say, well, I can go ahead, irrespective of the fact that my parents couldn't afford it, but then I want to launch in, take a loan, and then when I earn resources, when I become employable, when I become a better citizen, which is the opportunity that this loan gives, then I can pay back.
Okay.
And I need to say clearly here, my own mother suffered the pain before the Universal Primary Education Scheme. She couldn't go to school. And so she dropped out. So the pain that she had, that she dropped out, became positive for her in making sure that we, our children, went to school.
Okay.
She kept bringing our resources to the table to make sure that we went to school.
Right.
Up to the tertiary education level.
Okay.
And she never did anything for herself except that.
Okay.
Okay, Gboyega, please, I wanted to speak to the fears of ASUU. ASUU have alleged that the federal government, through this student loan, is trying to keep students in permanent debt. Do you think ASUU is being reasonable with that conclusion?
Well, I think it's looking at different sides of this. And I think ASUU is speaking for themselves, but I think more importantly, ASUU needs to look at the supply side of the finance. I think their concern is probably the supply side finance. For instance, the children or the undergraduates that are going to school, if they access this loan, are they going to end up having quality education because our tertiary education system is underfunded?
Okay.
And so because they are underfunded, you probably be accessing loan to continue to access low-quality education. In terms of comments that maybe they are trying to impoverish the students, I don't really totally agree. And I think we should allow the beneficiaries, the parents and the students, to be the one, to be the voice about this on the demand side. And then us to be the voice on the supply side, which is looking at what is exactly the quality of tertiary education system. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the system? Do we have the environment to actually deliver quality education? Because when Mr. Soyatu was speaking, he was talking about quality education. So at the end of the day, do we want to have access to loan to continue to access poor quality education? And I think that should or is the concern of ASU. So while we are providing demand side finance, we should also be looking at supply side finance. And I think that is the area in which government has not really done the balancing. Given the fact of the complaints about what our tertiary education system looks like at the moment in terms of quality of what is on offer.
So, as had Mr. Sawyer had also said that during the first phase of the application process, about 600,000 students, have applied into the scheme. And now that the second phase is about to commence, he particularly noted that there has been low response from southwestern states. Does this worry you?
Okay, that there has been low response from the southwestern. I think actually they have 60,000 people who have applied.
60,000?
60,000 in all that have applied. So, what you are telling me now is I said there is low response from the southwestern states.
Right.
Well, I think that might be linked to the fact that in terms of being educationally advanced, and the willingness of parents to be responsible for the education of their children, probably because it is higher in this part of the world. It may be one of the reasons, because in terms of, there is none of the southwestern states that is on the list of educationally disadvantaged states.
True.
So there is an inbuilt, unspoken understanding that you fund your children's education, your child goes to school. But over time, as it goes on, because I am from the southwestern part, I have been engaging with people at level, because every year I see people who drop out, I see people who couldn't pay. So what we've been doing at our level is also to make people to become aware that this opportunity is available, and it is also interest-free. That's the beauty of it. So you don't compound interest even while you are on the phone. But it's likely that, well, because of the fact that southwestern states, people have been able to fund their children's education over time. But obviously, too, there are a lot of people who are actually borrowing money to fund their children's education.
Okay. How does this connect with the quest of government to address the problem of unemployment and youth restiveness in our society?
Hello, sir.
I'm saying that how does this student loan connect with the quest of government in addressing the problem of unemployment and youth restiveness?
Well, I think when you look at the loan also made provision for those who are even entering into TVET, technical and vocational education, not necessarily those who are doing formal education per se. So on the basis of that, I want to say that if awareness is properly created with the youth, it is going to end up being able to minimize the challenge with unemployment with the youth, because it's not looking at those who can actually go into tertiary level alone. There is window for those who are going to the technical and vocational education institutions. So, and then secondly, you also look at it from the point of view that the youth that are unlikely to have access to education because their parents cannot pay are likely going to now become enrolled and become useful at their youthful age to access education instead of becoming social miscreants. And so the likelihood of increase of people who are miscreants is reduced, and then the likelihood of being employable, provided they are able to access the right skills in the university. And that is where we talk about the supply side finance, so that we don't get people into university again and come out and they are not employable, number one. They are not productive. They are not creative. because not everybody will be employed by government.
Right.
A graduate is expected to be creative if actually they went through and they had the right quality of education at the tertiary level.
Okay. Boyega, before we allow you go this morning, I'm sure that, of course, many people, especially for those in your sector, do know that countries across the world play large with the Students' Fund, student loan scheme. What are some of the mistakes that you'd like for the NEL Fund not to be involved in for the smooth running of the scheme?
Okay, one of the things that has happened in the developed world, it's about the challenge of recovering the fund. And I think this is about risk mitigation, challenges of recovering the fund. If people take the fund as national cake and they don't pay back, there is a challenge of sustainability down the line. Even though we have a sure source of fund, which is coming from 1% of the federal fund. But part of the challenge will be people taking the loan as national cake, which was what happened in the 70s. People who were sent abroad to go and school with national, with the student loans, didn't pay back, even though they schooled abroad. So I think that is what government needed to, because it's possible that people will access this loan and then they japa, and when they japa, they refuse to pay as well. Whereas they are in a better position to be able to pay. And those are the areas in which government needs to look into about the livelihood of people, because it happened in that of Australia, where it became an incentive for people who travel abroad not to repay the loan, because it was linked to tax payment, your tax returns in Australia. So your repayment is linked to tax return in Australia. And so those who are not living in Australia do not have the obligation to make tax return to the Australian government. And so people who moved out were not paying. So it may also happen here in Nigeria. And one thing we need to understand is that, and the truth about it is that in our state institutions, federal institutions, education is subsidized. We are not paying the true cost. And you can get that by comparing the cost of the same level of education in the public against the private. If you want to do medicine in a private university in Nigeria, you'll be talking about minimum of 4 to 5 million naira per session.
Right.
And here in the public institution, a number of them pay less than 500,000 naira. You understand me? So you get that education with the student loans, and then you disappear abroad, and you are earning good money abroad, and yet you are not paying back. So those are the things that could happen, and that could endanger the scheme. However, I think also, you've not asked me that, I think we need to improve the program as it's going on. I think if we are talking about improving access, we actually need to allow access to private people who choose to go to private institutions. Because 149 private universities in Nigeria, they are enrolling 10% of the 2 million children that are in the university in Nigeria. So I don't think it will be out of place as we move on to continue to improve it, to allow access to those who choose private institutions as their destination, as long as they are able to pay back the loan.
Okay, Boyega, another quick one. Do you think that we have an efficient data system in place to actually ensure the proper repayment process?
I think from what the development that is going on in the country now, the use of NIN, BVN, and what Mr. Sawyer has explained, I think we are having close to good data management system to be able to track this. And the linkage of this with your JAMB registration number. If you are admitted, if you are admitted through JAMB, then you can access. So all those data synchronization, I think they are getting better and might make the system to be much more efficient than those that have failed in the past.
All right. We do thank you sincerely, Boyega Ilusonya, education strategist and MD Wise Daniel Development Consultancy Limited. Thank you so much for your time and expertise on the program today.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've been speaking with Boyega Ilusonya on the students' loan scheme, and so that's the much we will take on the conversation this morning. We will take a quick break. When the program returns, it'll be time to join the Lagos ladies.
the people from Abeokuta, which literally called the Egbas, they settle in Abeokuta, then come to Lagos, to this area to farm. So the word Abule means their farm area where they normally farm is what is now termed to be Abule Egba, which has now finally become a place, the developing for the people of Lagos to live in.
Before, this place is no-go area in terms of hold up.
Abule Egba has really changed too, sincerely. And I must say that it makes the place look neater, and sincerely, this place has really changed. Although it really changed the transport system, you have to walk some distance before you get your bus or keke maro or wherever you are going to, but I think it's better.
It's an improvement which has affected both the commerce and commercial activities and the traffic. It's a total change. This place was traffic dense, very, very serious with traffic before the bridge was constructed.
Before, Abule Egba was like something else, There's always congestion on the road. The road was very bad, but now it's looking very fabulous. Welcome back. This is the second segment of the conversation, popularly known as the Conversation Lagos. Today we'll be looking at a condition often misunderstood or misrepresented by parents, teachers, guardians, and speech defect or disorder is something you cannot treat by just walking into a hospital. You need to see a specialist. And some of these speech disorders are lips, apraxia of speech. Please, I'm not the expert. The expert is here. Let her come and educate us. We have Adedamola Adetuberu. She's a speech and language therapist. And, today's focus is on dealing with children with special needs. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Ma.
Okay, before we begin, let's, just talk about your background first and what has inspired you to toe this line.
Okay. Well, I never thought I would be in this line. If we all know University of Ibadan very well, they just throw you anywhere after your post-UTME and they feel, okay, you've passed and we just don't want to take you out. So I wanted another profession entirely.
So did you study psychology or medicine?
No. I studied, I'm from Department of Special Education.
Okay.
Then I major in audiology and speech pathology.
Okay.
Then after that you have to pick a particular unit, which I focused on speech and language pathology.
Okay.
So that's how I met myself here.
Speech and language pathology, that's like talking medicine.
Well, it's called paramedical, actually, so it's still in line, let me put it like that.
It is. I asked, when we started that, did you study medicine, did you study psychology?
No.
Okay, so speech and language disorder, I can understand what speech disorder is, because the person can't talk well. But which one is language disorder? So can you educate us what speech and language disorder is all about?
Okay, just like you said, speech is we are talking. Language is speaking a particular thing. For example, we are all communicating in English, so we could hear ourselves, isn't it? So basically, language has to do with what you are saying, like what people are hearing as your speech. How do you know if I'm bringing it out in a layman term?
Take it again.
Okay, so for example, if I'm speaking in Yoruba and you can't understand Yoruba, we are not communicating.
Okay.
I don't even get what I'm
Communication
saying.
hasn't taken place.
It hasn't taken place.
Okay.
But language is more like I'm trying to communicate with you.
Okay.
You understand what I am saying.
Okay.
If it might not be true speech, you can also use one or two body gestures, imitation, and the likes to communicate.
Okay, give us an example so that, you know, our viewers at home can understand fully what you're saying.
Okay, so for example, language, I need a water.
Okay.
And I'm trying to pick the cup to say that I need a water.
Okay.
But for example, I can't move. I keep looking at the water. I keep looking at you. Looking at the water, I keep looking at you.
Okay.
With time, you should understand I'm trying to say,
She wants
I need the
water.
water.
Okay, which is different from like sign language, which we'll go into
No,
much later.
sign language has to do with
Okay.
your hands and the legs. You can also communicate with sign language, body gesture, imitation, various ways to communicate.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be the speech alone.
Okay. Let's look at your role and responsibility. What exactly do you do?
Okay. So I majorly work with children that have speech defects. For example, in a layman's term, you can't talk appropriately well. Your speech is not audible. Nobody understands what you're saying. So communication has not taken place. So at times, children with autism, for example, children with Down syndrome, children with cerebral palsy, stroke patient as well. So people that have one defect or the other with talking, majorly.
Okay, so you major with children. Now, how do you diagnose that a child has this defect? Because we know that some children don't talk immediately. Some start speaking very early.
I have a sibling. She's in her 40s now. She didn't start to talk, you know, speak and talk until she was about 4.
4 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Which is a bit late.
Very late.
Yes.
And so majorly, as a parent, once you've noticed that from age 2, there's developmental stages. So a child can talk at 9 months and a child can talk at 4 years. That does not mean the child has speech defect or anything. But from age 2, you're asked to go to the hospital, seek medical counsel, let them tell you. Then if there's a need for speech therapy, then we will be consulted.
So this is to say that at age 2, that child should have been
trying to talk, because we have stages to talking. We have cooing. As a baby, most of the time they coo from cooing to babbling.
That was cool.
Like, so that is how you
go,
yes,
they produce sounds.
yes, producing little
Blah,
sounds
blah, blah.
before going to babbling. Babbling is the blah 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 blah. They are talking. You know they are saying something, but
Okay, this is from what age now? The cooing.
children should make sound from 1 month plus.
Okay.
You should start hearing them making some sounds.
Okay.
Like 2 months, start saying 1 or 2 things. But majorly, you as a mother, let me put it like that, you understand, okay, my child needs something. Maybe my child wants to sleep. Maybe my child wants to eat.
Yeah, we understand those,
Exactly.
those
So it's still
signs.
part of cooing, but people might not understand. But they are communicating before they move to babbling. Even at babbling stage, you might not understand. People might not understand, but as a mother, you know that, okay, this child is trying to tell me something. Before they start picking monosyllabic words as they are growing.
Okay, can you tell us some of the speech disorders that you have encountered by telling us the different types of speech disorders?
We have different types of speech disorders. We have apraxia.
The one I was trying to put.
We have apraxia. Then we also have aphasia. Like,
What's apraxia? What's aphasia?
well, if you want to know more about that, I will not be. Come and meet me. It's my profession, so let people come around and
You
talk
don't want
to me.
to, at least,
So you want to share with us.
share with us. So even parents are watching, so they know what to look out for, and then they come to meet you.
Okay, so speech apraxia has to do with you are omitting words. Let me put it like that. For example, I want to say rabbit and I'm saying wabbit.
Wabbit. Okay.
I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Because we're going deeper and deeper. When you say,
the children normally do that.
Yes, that is how they start to talk. Wabbit.
Yes, of course, it's expected. If a child is trying to pick speech and language, it's expected. But if it is concurrence, like the child keeps growing and you are still
wabbit.
Exactly. So something is wrong. So it's not really a major problem, but it can be corrected at early stage. You don't wait till child is 10, child is way older before you start talking.
So when as a parent and you identify that, okay, we need to, then we'll bring the child to you. So how do you diagnose and say, okay, this is this particular speech defect this child has?
Okay, so when the child is brought to us, we have different assessment skills that is being used. So those are the skills. You place the child on different assessment skills. Let me put it like that. There's a way it's being checked. It's data-based. You cannot just think and say, I think the child has. You'll have to go through a series of assessments in the house, and school if the child is in school, maybe where the child plays or something, like various places to assess the child before you now say, okay, this child has this particular speech defect.
So, in terms of early detection, how significant, does that influence or does that affect children with special?
Okay, early intervention is very, very important because as a child grows, every part of the body grows, the brain grows. And if you allow it and you don't do anything about it, it might be difficult to correct later in future. So it is very important as parents, if you notice anything, it might not just be speech alone. Maybe you notice what we call ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. You can just walk into an hospital. Yes, you can just, or you keep seeing some things that are quite strange and you're looking at it that, why is my child behaving like this? Don't make a conclusion. Take the child to an hospital, let them assess if there's a need to see maybe a speech therapist, maybe to see a behavioral therapist, to see a physiotherapist, any kind of therapy the child needs, they will definitely let you know.
Okay. So let's talk about emotional and psychological aspect of dealing with children with special needs, both on the part of the child and the part of the caregiver or parent. How can this be handled?
Well, the truth is it can be overwhelming. For example, you don't even understand what is wrong with your child. So you're wondering, why is my child behaving like this? Why is my child not talking, for example? Why is my child not sitting? And at times, parents, caregivers can go at any level. I even when some people go to places to go and pray, they tie some people down and say, the spirit of not sitting down in one place, we cast you out. So most time it can be overwhelming. Even after you seek knowledge, you know about it. You need to give it your all. It is not just about you saying, whenever you want to talk, you talk. No. You still try as caregivers to see what and what you can do, because whatever therapy you are going to be saying will definitely let you know the things you also be doing in the house for the child, which will help whatever they are doing as well. So it can be very overwhelming, but trust me, you can actually scale through.
So how do you handle the children also looking that they're not little? Maybe the child is already in primary school and has this little challenge. How do you help the child to come out of it looking like, oh, my mates are like this, why am I different from my mates? How do you handle that?
So mostly, if the child is already in primary school and we don't take them out of the primary section, they still need to socialize. The only thing is we include therapy into what they are doing. That's what we call inclusive. So you include it to their class. Their teacher knows about it. We'll see how we can work around. At times, you could get a therapist to be coming to the child's school to work with the child. If the child can still cope in the line of his or her class. So you just don't pull them out and say, you don't fit in here. We still want them to fit in.
Okay, you know there are children with autism.
Yeah.
Okay, and not all autistic children have speech disorders, right?
No.
So the ones who are non-verbal, how do you treat them? And can all speech disorders be corrected?
Well, I'll rephrase that to say speech disorder can be managed.
Okay.
So I will try to correct whichever way I can.
Okay.
But I will not give a promise or say, if you meet me today, your child will talk tomorrow. No. So mostly we manage it, and the management level is in stages. You can't just jump. A child that is still trying to talk, you cannot tell the child to say, I want to sit down. It's wrong. So you start from, okay, the sound of I want to sit down. What are the sounds coupled together to pronounce the word I want to sit down? So how do we start from this particular sound? So majorly the child has to, first of all, know how to produce sounds before you start now merging the sounds together to create a word. So you can, that is how the stages are. So you can, a child that is non-verbal, just like you said, will have to start from child making some sound. That's why we use phonic sound, ha, ba, ka, da. Learning that. By the time you know the phonic sounds, you can match ha, p, p, that's apple. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So you just don't jump in and say, tell me apple. Must tell me apple. No. That is wrong. You have to take it step by step. So you don't also confuse the child. And it's also not so complex for the child to understand.
Okay, you've only spoken about one step, and you said there are stages. What are the other stages?
Before you're going to the other stage, she said something that it can be managed. So are you saying it's something that is a lifelong thing?
Well, it depends on the what we have mild, moderate, and severe. So it depends on the level that the child falls in.
So is it okay to group the non-verbal ones as severe?
No, you can't group them.
Okay.
Because by the time they undergo therapy, you should see improvements.
Okay, they start to talk.
Some of them start making sounds. They start giving you monosyllabic words. That's like, come, go, take, sit. So with that, it's a gradual process. You take it from that to another one. You can now maybe give two words and say, come, go, I want. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. But you cannot just give a full sentence and expect the child to tell you immediately. You are also confusing the child like that.
Okay, I used to visit a primary school.
Okay.
And, in that school, I saw two pupils that have assistants, that come with them from home.
Yes.
And they said they spend they come to that particular school, spend 3 days and go to another school. And today, these children are teenagers and they still have these assistants who help them in communicating. And that was why I asked earlier, what role is the assistant doing? Can this thing be, cured, or it's a lifelong thing, even with the ones that have assistants?
So having an assistant does not mean that they shouldn't be independent. Having that assistant wants to make them independent on their own. For example, you are in a school setting and you have a therapist with you as a child. The therapist is there to guide you, not doing everything for you. I think that's the mistake most people make.
Okay.
So for example, the child has been placed in grade 1 to learn the curriculum of grade 1.
Okay.
The therapist is there to assist and guide you in learning the curriculum of grade 1.
Assist and guide.
Okay.
What exactly is this assistant doing?
Okay, for example, they're supposed to learn A to Z, and the class is already on maybe D, and the child with special needs is still battling with A and B. Okay. That is where you come in.
Okay.
You take extra effort, you take extra time to teach the child to meet up with his class. But that doesn't mean you should be doing his exercises for him. You guide him through it. You still make him independent through teaching him.
Okay.
So you are not, with time, the child can move from A to meeting the class with D, on and on. Then getting to teenagers' age, it varies. At times you must have to teach them how to put on their clothes, how to put on their shoes, just to make them independent. So that does not mean the therapist to be there with the child forever.
Forever, okay.
Just to put them through the basic things they need to know. So that is why we call it inclusive. They are inclusive in their curriculum, in their work setting. They are there.
When you said something about that doesn't mean the therapist will be there forever. So I said to myself, therapists will be there according to how much you can pay. So how affordable is getting the services of a therapist?
Well, I won't be able to tell you that this is an exact amount that the therapist will be receiving from the
Is it
parent.
something that the common man can afford?
Well, that's a big question. Who is the common man? So we're trying to talk about maybe let me say the underprivileged to access the therapy. Well, I would say no. Because looking at it truthfully, there are a lot of things that need to be put in place. And it is not like a home lesson teacher. This is a therapy. It is not a regular thing that is being done. So it's a process. So as a therapist, I will look at the process that I will be giving the child at times to charge. But that does not mean it's not affordable.
Okay. Well, let's look at stammering.
Okay.
And stuttering. What's the difference? Are they the same thing?
They are the same thing. It's just different words.
Oh, it's the same thing. Okay. How can someone who stammers, be helped?
When I was in university, there's a lady that walked into our department. I said, "I'm Mr. Mara. I don't want to stammer again."
When you were in
university,
okay.
Yes.
Grown up.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't want to stammer again. I want to talk well. Then I could remember that our lecturer sat her down. I started communicating with her, and she was timed for 20 minutes, and she only stammered once, and that was the beginning of the conversation. So stammering at times is anxiety. Like, I want to talk. You already process what you want to say. But at the process of saying it, you just find yourself putting the words together.
And think faster than...
Exactly. Okay. So just calm down and talk one after the other. With time, you will discover that you can do it. Or else it is a medical condition. But if you just notice that you are trying to talk and just calm down, pick your words one after the other. To start reducing gradually. You take a conscious effort to start reducing it one after the other.
Okay, so working with children with special needs, how has it been like?
Well, it's been amazing, sincerely, and I so much love them. In the sense that we call them children with special needs, but they have something very special that even with the so-called normal people in quotes don't even have. They can be very amazing in some aspects, and you'll be like, wow. I have a child that loves to draw, sketch, and everything, and sincerely, I can't do what he's doing at my age. He's still a child, like about 7, and he could sketch well. And he's a child with special needs. So most of the time, I try to bring out their strengths in them, to teach them. And with that, they can actually thrive. So it's not about the child is not talking. Then I look at the fact that the child is not talking, and I let the child be. No, there's something in that child that is not talking.
Okay. Special need, physically challenged, are they the same thing? Because while I was growing up, we didn't used to use physically challenged. We just used to call them disabled, and and we have those who cannot even speak at all. We used to call, oh, they are dumb, they are deaf, they are dumb, and you know they communicate with sign language.
Yeah.
How do they? How are they different from the ones you treat, or do you also treat or manage these physically challenged ones, the ones that cannot speak?
Well, for physically challenged people, if there's a difficulty in talking, of course we can still manage. But if it is just maybe motion that is affected and they can talk, there's no need.
Those who can talk. Those we used to refer to as deaf
and dumb.
Yes.
Before you can conclude that they're deaf and dumb, you have to go through some tests. That's audiology tests. Check their hearing decibel. How high can they hear? How low can they hear? It's being measured. And if they do the test and they see that, okay, this person can't talk at all or can't hear at all, okay, you can be moved to sign language. But if they check it and, just like I said, mild, moderate, and profound, it depends on the level you fall to. If it is mild, that means you can hear. And if you can hear, we can start communicating one way or the other. So not just by concluding that they are dumb.
Okay.
That's why you are saying, okay, this person cannot talk. You still have to go through some assessment, just like I said earlier, before you conclude that somebody is deaf
You don't like
or
to
dumb.
talk about it. I've noticed you don't want to talk about this assessment.
I can't fully explain how assessment is being done here. It's just more like, okay, you take a child to a doctor, the doctor will ask you some questions, try to know one or two things about it, then carry out some tests before concluding that, okay, maybe the child has malaria.
Okay.
So let's put it like that.
So we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll bring you a Lagos Sense. Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Online. The thing is that a lady bumped into my DM on WhatsApp, and she was like, she wants to be my friend and da 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 da. Okay, I said no problem. I'm a friendly person. So she posts pictures of giveaway that she usually do giveaways to people. And then I was in need of money. Like, I needed money. I wanted to pay for my acceptance fee to the university. So I was like, okay, let me take a try. Then she said we have to pay like 5,000 naira to get this certain amount. I'm supposed to tell my parents about it though, so that they can advise me if I'm supposed to do so. But for the fact that I needed the money urgently, I had just 2,000 naira left in my account. So I said, okay, let me try it. Then I tried it. My money went, and I didn't receive the money said she was going to send. She sent an alert. Then it was done on me that it was actually a fake alert. Then I spoke to my brother, and my brother was like, I should have spoken about it. That those people like that, that's how they usually do. I felt really bad. I was able to get the money I want, and the little one I had left.
Welcome back. It is still the conversation, and that experience there, she wanted to get rich quick. But anyway, we still have our guest with us here in the studio, Adedamola Adetubero, speech and language therapist, who has been talking about dealing with children with special needs. So, Adedamola, before we go back into our conversation, do you have any experience that you might want to share with us on the show?
Okay, I think when I first came into Lagos, and I was trying, that was like last year, yes. And it was the first scarcity era, and I was rushing to work.
Where did you come from?
Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt.
Yes.
Okay.
And I took a bus from Bagada going towards Alausa, and we got to Ifako side, and the bus just stopped. And I'm like, what happened? He said, there's no fuel. Okay, we're like, okay, we've all paid you for our transport. Like, then the guy said he's not going again. But 80% of us inside that bus, we're going to work. Sincerely, we all contributed money. One of us went to look for black market and poured inside the bus. And it was, at times when I remember, I'm like, okay, maybe this is what they talk about, welcome to Lagos. They welcomed me.
Wow. Okay, so you people joined money together to buy fuel for him.
After we've paid our fare, like transfer fare, we still paid for fuel.
Welcome to Lagos. All right, going back to our discussion dealing with children with special needs. So we've talked extensively about speech disorder. My interest now is the language part. So you said if a child cannot understand the language, it's a disorder. So if a child cannot understand his mother tongue, is that a disorder? Or what really is language disorder?
Well, if a child cannot understand his mother tongue, it's not a disorder. The child has not been taught to understand his mother tongue. So when you are now being taught, or he has been spoken to in a particular language, and there's still a difficulty, okay, we can look into that. Maybe there's a disorder. But you not understanding your language, it might be that your parent had not even taught you the language. So we can't call that a disorder. But language disorder in the sense that is what we use to communicate. If we are speaking different languages, we are not communicating. But the child is trying to communicate, saying ba, da, ma. You're not getting me. But I'm talking. But you don't understand what I'm saying. So, and you discover that the child is having difficulty expressing his or herself.
I think I get now.
So I want to find out how parents, can support their children with this speech disorder and speech and language disorder. How can they help them with development, in the home?
Okay, so just like I tell most of my clients' parents, you are highly needed. It's not just the therapist thing, because the truth is that maybe therapy in a day can be maybe 3 or 4 hours. The child is back at home, she spends most of the hours at home. So for example, just like I tell them, if we discover that a child is, just like I use the example of water, is trying to point at water, you can also prompt the child and say, this is water, water. You don't have to tell me this is water. No, that's wrong. Water, that's a simple word. With that, the child can start picking it gradually. But not you saying, I've paid a therapist, I don't have anything to do.
Responsibility to the therapist.
So you are also still responsible for that child. Because at times, it will give you some tasks and say, at home, this child is mostly with you at home. Okay, how does this child, when he wants to ask for something, what does he say? Okay, we want you to try and teach the child to say water, just one word. Let's start with that. The child has mastered water, for example, can generalize water anywhere that the child goes. We can now move to adding more words to I want water. So parents are highly needed with children with speech and language disorder. They are highly needed. You also will not keep quiet and not do anything. Your role is highly needed.
Okay, I want to find out, you've spoken about privileged parents who can afford to get an assistance for their children with special needs. Let's look at Lagos State schools. How do you, or is there any form of collaboration with Lagos State schools or children who attend public schools or their teachers?
Okay, so for children that can access the therapy for speech and language disorder, it's still a bit of a challenge, because reaching them is one thing.
Because in private schools, they have a more convenient environment for them. What about public schools? You know, children.
It's not. It's they are lacking behind. Let me put it like that. So if we can get more NGOs that will be willing to assist these children, because we know that the parent or caregiver might not be able to afford it. So if we can get NGOs that could assist, there are some NGOs that are doing it presently, but it's still not enough. That's the truth. It's people that could afford it that you're hearing about. People that can't afford it a lot. And it is not just a one-man thing.
And sometimes when they can't afford it, it leads to a lot of
going to pastors, taking concussions, and all that. So we need help from a lot of people, NGOs that could help.
Okay. Joy.
All right. So, what advice would you give to those who are not privileged to, get the services of a therapist like you?
Okay.
And they have children with special needs. What advice do you have for them?
So, advice I'll give is that go to an hospital, for example, a general hospital. I heard that there are some special schools in Lagos State, and there's no how you get to a general hospital, and they won't tell you about it. So don't still keep quiet and say, I don't have the money. At least try. Maybe from there your voice can be heard. You don't know. You never can tell who you will meet. You never can tell who will help. So just don't keep quiet or put the child at home, lock the child in. No. Still try. General hospital is still affordable. Meet with them. They have names of special schools owned by government that they can also refer you to if there's a need for that. And if you never can tell, just like I said earlier, somebody can be there to help. I have people that they can just say, okay, I want to check this child therapy fee for the whole year. You never can tell. But you keeping quiet and not saying anything, you're not helping yourself, and you're also not helping the child.
Okay, as a therapist, can you share any success story that you've worked on?
Okay, it depends. Children or adults, let me know, sir.
Anyone.
Okay.
Or both.
Okay. So in Port Harcourt, I had a child that's under the spectrum, that's autism, and wasn't talking.
At what age?
At age 5.
Okay.
I met the child at age 5, and it took me about 2 years before the child could give me a simple sentence. But the day he gave me a simple sentence, I felt fulfilled.
Like, how are you?
And he said, I am fine. I felt so fulfilled, like, okay, what I've been doing for years, this is the result. Then I also had a stroke patient that is a professor in Uniport, and when they contacted me, in fact, that day I told my husband that I don't think I'll take this one, because, the stroke has so affected him that he can't even move any part of his body. And I'm like, where will I start from? After about